Okay. I believe we are live. Let me make sure it's going to catch up with us. Let's see here.
Yeah, your image is starting to drag, so maybe it's starting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let me go back up on here. Okay, then let's do this. Welcome to Mariano Big Dawgs Corner, here exclusively on a new podcast. I am your host, Dawn Piercy. We are here live today. We are here live, and co-host Mariano Mendoza, which hopefully he's going to be showing up soon or in the chat room with us live. Today we have with us Mavrick Von Hog. He is a 5-year world championship fighter, UFC pioneer, cage combat, honorary mayor of California, pilot, boat captain, actor, pastor, bodyguard. Mavrick, welcome to Mariano Big Dawgs Corner. How are you?
We're blessed to be here, Don. Thanks for having us on. How are you?
I'm doing great. Great to be on. Now, from what I know, the honorary mayor, you were in the governor's race this year in California. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I ran for mayor of Lucerne Valley, California, and became the mayor out there for about a year, just a little over a year. And in my travels out there, the township really needed some help. It needed some leadership. And it was mostly derived towards the children of the area and their education. The format and the structure just wasn't quite there. And I tried to make that change and start with the children and say, look, if you want to empower this township, it starts with your kids.
Right.
So I ran for the board of trustees for San Bernardino County. The papers destroyed me, said, oh, you're an MMA fighter with a tattoo on your face.
Right.
You're never going to get elected, da-da-da. Needless to say, we set a record for the most votes ever for a politician in San Bernardino County, becoming the board of trustees for the school district for Lucerne Valley.
Very nice.
So that being said, we shook up a lot of people, and that's in turn, we had some support behind us and decided that, California needed the right leadership. And so we got on the ballot. We are still currently on the ballot. But unfortunately, due to the financial restrictions, what's needed to run for governor, we just didn't have that kind of financial backing. It's about $11 million to run. Yeah, it's insane. And the sad thing is that the corrupt part of business about government and how somebody can get elected, people didn't even think I was even going to get on the ballot. It was a small miracle that I even got on the ballot and was able to do it. But the type of fiscal funding that you need to have to become governor is just, it's unbelievable. It's a big bureaucracy. I don't want to call it a scam, but it's a hustle. There's more criminals in the higher government than there are in the streets, believe it or not. Just take, for instance, let's just say a construction company called R&M Construction Company. Gave Governor Brown $2.5 million to run. So you ask yourself, how does a small construction company give a politician $2.5 million in their candidacy to run? Well, let me explain to you how it works. So after Governor Brown gets elected, now mind you, these companies that support these politicians have supported their families' politics for years. So R&M Construction gets to account for California highways. So R&M Construction during Governor Brown's candidacy there did 22,000 miles of asphalt. Okay, well, they got the contract for that. He was a supporter. Well, it's $1.5 million per mile. So exactly, do the math. So that's how this game works. And at lower level politics, the average man can get inside there. But to get at the higher level, you're talking governor, presidency, these take huge funding and large backing corporations to back you, because then there's always a payback. And that's how these politicians get in. That's why you don't ever see somebody that started in low-level politics really ever make it anywhere, unless family have years and years of family organizations that have dealt with these big corporations and they know how the game works. So unfortunately, we didn't want to pull out, but we had to at this point because we need to reassess the situation. We got intel into Dana White for the next candidacy to get UFC behind me. also the maker of Mattel toys, to get them behind me so we can have some big corporate sponsorship funding.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, this has been 5 months of running before it's barely about to start now. You got to do this 2 years before it even happens to get all your ducks in a row for this. So unfortunately, people didn't want us to pull out, but we had to pull out because I didn't want to use my family's money, my friends' money, my business partners' money at that level of $2 million. It doesn't compare to $11 million.
No, it don't. No, it absolutely does not. Okay, up to the point to where you're running for honorary mayor, how long have you been doing that?
Well, I did that for a year and a half.
Okay.
I resigned from that to run for the school board, to lead the school board, because you really couldn't do both things.
Okay.
And so I had to run my election campaign for the school board in San Bernardino County, and then got on that board because I had more control over the school district and the programs that were being taught to our kids.
Right. Yeah. I wanted to ask you, your fight career. I definitely have to ask you that. The cage combat fights, your story on becoming the 5-year world championship. Can you share with us that?
Yeah, it's a funny thing. Before the UFC even started, we were doing this back in 91 and 92. And the irony of it, that the UFC did not come up with the octagon. A gentleman by the name of Kaja, or better known as Greg Patchell, he's a man who actually first used the octagon in the early 90s. And sorry about that.
Oh.
And we were, I lost you guys, sorry.
You dropped me.
Yeah, dropped it. So we were actually using that octagon in the early 90s, and there was no weight classes, nothing like that. SureDog doesn't display your fight record completely accurate whatsoever. Okay. There's hundreds of fighters out there. Because if you go on YouTube, you type in Mavrick UFC, SureDog doesn't have any of the Pride fights, none of the K1 listings. I mean, there's over 100 fights on YouTube alone where you can physically watch the fight.
Right.
But SureDog is listed like at 12 or 16 fights. So
it's at
SureDog
13.
is a farce.
It's at 13 with 8 wins and 5 losses.
You got 108 fights. I think there's one poster in here that has, 48 fights on one of them just alone,
Okay.
Couldn't reign for 5 years in one organization and have 13 fights. Just think it happened.
Well, I wondered about that. I know when I go to do research and I'm looking and I was like, 13 fights. Is that accurate? And then I seen another list on someone else that was on another site. And I was like, well, no, those don't match up. So, I mean, sometimes you got to take it and run with it. But
it is what it is. That's politics also. It's they're involuntary also. And, when big companies like that list it and they have certain funding behind them, they don't list certain companies' fights or certain organizations' fights or whatever. But needless to say, K1's a huge organization. Pride was a big organization. Mm-hmm. And they didn't put those fights in there also. But, I held that title for 5 years. And that was 32 different fights.
Wow.
They were, and you got to think about this. Well, 3 years into it, there was still no weight classes. So here I was fighting any man that they could bring that thought was just going to take me off the throne. Mm-hmm. And it got pretty vicious. Mariano will tell you about that. I mean, cage combat was the epitome of the hardest core fighting because we had no weight classes. We had no time limits.
Right.
You fought till the last man was standing. And that's far from what the UFC is now, because if these guys are 1 pound over the other guy, they want to get charged and fined extra money, for the fighter being 1 pound over. I'm fighting guys 100 and 200 pounds over my weight, just ridiculous. So the game's evolved. I'm not mad. I'm not jealous, but I'm just like, these kids now looking like, come on, dude. I weigh all of 225 pounds, 220 pounds fighting 350 pound guys, 300 pound guys. There's no 5 minutes and take a break. It was like, keep fighting till the end,
They say size don't matter.
That's right. That's for dang sure.
Right. Okay. I want to know too, how did you become a pilot? You've got so many great things that you're doing. I want to be able to touch base at least a little bit on each one of them.
Well, the irony is if you look up also too, I put a lot of extreme stunt bike videos out, like riding wheelies on motorcycles, doing crazy stunts on sport bikes. And my drive for speed and adrenaline it's just always been there for me. I never drank or did any drugs in my life whatsoever. I still don't drink to this day. I mean, I can probably count on my hand when I've had a few drinks as a social gathering, maybe had one drink or two drinks, but that's never been my drug or anything. My drug has always been like speed and competition. So by riding motorcycles and getting numerous tickets and having taxed cars, this guy brought up to me, he's like, you really should get an airplane. That way you don't have to worry about the police, And I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. So, but growing up military, I've always had a passion for World War II airplanes. And that's always been my drive and my inspiration. Well, I have a condition called acute psychomotor syndrome. And acute psychomotor syndrome, it's basically like this. It's basically, imagine you have your brain and you have a computer. And you have a computer that goes 1/100 millionth per second as a thought process. Well, my brain, if it was a computer, goes 1/1,000,000th of a second. So it continually override. That's why if you look in those videos, I'm standing on the tank of the motorcycle going down the freeway at 80 miles an hour, because my body can balance, quickly make adjustments, and smith a heartbeat of a fraction. And that's a good thing and a bad thing, because what it does is it takes your pituitary gland, your equilibrium, and it changes it completely from the way your body wants to move. Your mind's like overriding it. So as I got put in the velodrome for the jet, pulling the G's, my mind would overcome my body and my body would start to shut down. So becoming an naval jet pilot just wasn't going to happen, but I could still fly planes.
Okay.
So anyway, long story short, I bought my first airplane. It was a used airplane. We rebuilt the whole thing, and the love for flying was just ever since that day, I've just been on it. So
nice. Very nice. And boat captain.
Oh yeah. Well, you got to think about something. My dad was one of the founders of the U.S. Navy SEALs back in 1988. Yeah, Clarence Harvey. He just passed away a year and a half ago. And I grew up on the water. I got my golden dragons when I was 9 years old. My dad took me from Japan to Hawaii on a ship at 9 years old in 30-foot seas. I mean, I was extremely deathly ill. When I got to Hawaii, my mom was waiting there. I crawled off like a baby and said, I'll never get on a boat again. Ah. But that's just when you grow up on the water, that's just where your love of your life is. So now me and my girl have a 55-foot yacht, a classic yacht out here in San Pedro. And she loves staying on the boat. And I love being on the boat also. The water is my calm. It's my peace.
Absolutely. Now, bodyguard. Fill us in on that. What do you do?
I tell you.
Are you for hire?
Well, I'm always for hire. Money talks. I tell you, it's a great story. What happened was I ran in the Pasadena Olympics in 1989. I was a 100-meter sprinter. And I ran in 89. I took the silver medal. Right after that, I kind of walked away from sprinting and went to play for a football team called the Ontario Storm. It was a semi-pro football team. I got drafted to them. They were the minor league team for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The first play of the game, I took off on a bomb pattern, sprinted past everybody, caught the ball, and tore my hamstring. Completely detached it, rolled it up into my buttocks.
Oh, my gosh.
So I became bedridden for a long time because that was a really, really bad injury. And coming back, working out, getting back into martial arts and doing strength and conditioning and stretching, my buddy offered me a job. They needed an extra guy at was called Billboard Live at the time in LA. And he goes, man, we just need you to come down for one night, watch a back door with a shorthanded, give you $200. $200? Okay, I wasn't working. I was like, yeah, cool, pick me up. So that night he picked me up. He took me down to Billboard Live, and they put me upstairs on a back door that went to nowhere for no reason. They just had to have a body standing there, right? Well, lo and behold, that night Janet Jackson came in, and she was upstairs in the mezzanine, and I was completely all the way across the mezzanine from her. Billboard Live had the second deck, and her bodyguard comes over and says, hey, Miss Jackson wants to meet you. Come over and meet her. And I was like, hey, bro, this is my first day here. I'm not leaving this door. The owner told me to watch this door. I'm not leaving the door. He says, no, it's okay. I'm her bodyguard. Come over and meet her. She wants to meet you. I said, bro, I'm not leaving this door. The owner told me not to leave this door. And the guy's all, no, seriously, bro. Janet wants to meet you. You can leave the door. I'll watch the door. Come over and we'll meet her. I said, I'm not leaving the door, right? So the guy goes down. He gets the owner. Actually, the general manager, name was, his name Ken something, whatever, big white guy. He comes, he goes, oh, Mavrick, it's okay. Janet wants to meet you. Go over there and meet her, this and that. So I walked over there to meet her, and she goes, you haven't said a word to anybody all night, but all you had to do is look at people, and they understood exactly what you were saying and what you meant. And I'm like, really, at the back door, this side door? She goes, yeah, you didn't have to say nothing. I love your presence. I want you to work for me, yada, 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 blah, blah, blah. Okay, back then there was pagers. So you didn't even have a cell phone, right?
Right.
Here's my pager number. Lo and behold,
Page
2 days
me.
later,
Beep,
2 days later, someone from their organization pages me, man, and the rest was history. She fired me like 11 times. It's a long story, maybe something we get into later, but that's how it all started. And I went from Janet, I bodyguarded the Prince of Monaco while he was here for 11 months.
Very nice.
That was really big business. And then ever since then, it just evolved. And then my dad had started the organization of soul collectors in the early 50s in the Philippines. And they would watch the Philippine nightclubs because the servicemen would get drunk and all this. And my dad always had that mentality. The reason why they called him the soul collector, because he goes, any man could physically grab a man and walk him out.
Right.
But if you want to impress me, I want you to walk up to that guy, whisper in his ear, and get him to walk out on his own. So that's where the term soul collector came from, because he had the ability, to, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. We can still hear you.
Yeah. He had the ability to walk over and mentally remove somebody from a club instead of physically. I mean, sometimes they're not going to listen. You're going to have to do it physically.
Right.
So ever since then, everything that I taught my guys was all about using the spirit of yourself instead of the physical part of yourself. And it wasn't until years and years later until I really understood what I was really saying about the spirit of the mentality of a person versus the physicality of a person. Because my whole life has been this. I'm going to live by this. This is going to feed my family. This is going to feed my wants and my desires and my needs. And not until I had an epiphany about 7 years ago or 6 years ago when I gave myself back to God and became a pastor, that I understood what my dad was talking about the spirit of oneself. And that is like bringing the Lord into you and understanding his meaning and his wants and desires and how to give with your spirit instead of with this.
I do. I actually am an ordained minister myself.
Oh,
so
amen.
Yeah, I do. Is that how you got to be a pastor?
How it became, actually, I had, I've always been a dog lover my whole life. Everybody knows I love animals. And I had built a small condominium in my gym, a living quarters. And one day I was just sitting there and I was cooking, and all the dogs came up to the stove. And I was like, none of you guys are getting any of this meat. Don't even try. Go away. This is all for me. Me. And this overwhelming feeling came over me. And I broke down into tears. And I went down to my knees, and none of the dogs moved. They just sat there. And at that point, I realized that was the Lord coming over me, the Spirit, that it doesn't matter how strong you are, how many Lamborghinis you have, how good looking you are, how many world titles you win, how buff you think you are, how physically strong you think you are. That means nothing to the Spirit of our Lord Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And I realized at that point that I was truly unhappy. It wasn't buying the 2020 Lamborghini, even though those are my desires to constantly have new stuff and better, was not the answer. The answer was freeing up my spirit and giving it to the Lord and following him. And that's when I gave myself back to God and realized that he's got this plan for me, and as individuals, once we can understand or give ourselves to him and let his plan evolve, it's just you keep bumping your head along the way. You have momentary success, and I've done well for myself, but he has a bigger plan. And that's what opened my eyes, Spirit come in, and I was able to do all these things that I've done now, like become a politician, get my master's degree. I mean, it's just it's been crazy. It's been a crazy ride these last few years.
Very nice. Now, I want to talk to you about your acting. You were recently in Boone the Bounty Hunter, which came out in 2017, where you were a circle face. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, actually, Boone followed me from my fight career and whatnot, and he's a WWE superstar. And I had just recently done doing a movie called Dancer and the Dame with Billy Gardell.
Okay.
And where I obviously play the bad guys. I play the bad guys in all the movies. And even I don't know why. No. But before that, the irony of it was I just got done doing Do You Believe? It was the largest grossing faith-based film to date.
Okay.
And I played the drug lord in there. And it's the first Christian film that you show a person actually pulling out a gun and physically shooting people. And I kill like 3 people in the movie. So Boone had saw that and just something came over. He goes, I want you to be in this bounty hunter movie, this and that. I don't know what we're going to do. I want you to be in it. And they wrote in a part called Circle Face where he runs into this really bad guy in Mexico and has to deal with it. But he's just looking at me like, oh dear God, do I have to fight this guy like for real? So
now,
it was fun.
Revelation Road 1 and 2. I actually know somebody that you played with in there, Dave Vesio. You played as Meat. Can you tell us about that? I have not got to see it yet, and I've been wanting to see it. And where can we watch it at?
Revelation Road, I think, is on Netflix now still. So
really?
You can get it on. Yeah, it's on Netflix. And the irony is the greatest thing about that, I was filming that movie when I broke down that day in my kitchen. I was actually filming on that set, and I met Christian, the stunt coordinator, Monty Perlin.
Okay.
Christian, he was on that, and he was constantly talking to me and this and that. And I was, going through my spiritual change, and I was still ruling with this and the muscles. And that was a big part of actually making that movie, of the transition of me allowing the spirit to come in my life and to change my life. And it's basically a movie about this rogue motorcycle gang and this mean, cruel guy that busts into a store and kills everybody with an Uzi and gets in a fight with a bunch of guys, just the typical Mavrick, just an outlaw, just basically an outlaw. And that movie was a big part of the transition that had opened my eyes and my heart to where God had a plan for me and where I was headed. Okay.
Do you have anything coming up in the works that people don't know about that you can let us in on?
Actually, we do. We got a great thing. The new movie out right now, God's Not Dead 2, is directed. Not God's Not Dead 2. He filmed that, but it's a new movie called Goliath.
Okay.
Is that the name of the movie? Goliath. It's out in theaters right now. It's huge. It's really big. Gabriel Sarveloff is the director for that. And he wrote a script called Paladin that before my last fight with Shannon Rich, we had shot the trailer for it and was doing that. But as we all know, I got sick after the Shannon Rich fight, got valley fever, had a lung infection, walking pneumonia. Yeah, ended up in a coma for 9 days. It was crazy right after that fight.
Oh, my gosh.
So I had lost my size, so we had to stop that whole filming project. And now that I'm finally getting back, getting my size and strength back, we're going to start shooting that again also.
Okay. Very nice. Very, very nice. Now, for anybody that wants to see Mavrick's fight with Shannon the Cannon Rich, you can watch it on the bio page on Mariano Big Dawgs Corner. It's https://www.anewpodcast.com/Mariano Big Dawgs Corner. You can watch on the bio page. Also on the main front page, if you scroll down, it will have a list of all the bios and interviews on Mariano Big Dawgs Corner, as well as those on A New Podcast. Mavrick, Can you tell our listeners that want to keep up with everything that you've got going on where to follow you at?
Yeah, the best thing is to check us out on YouTube and our Instagram at the Immortal Soul. What is it? The Immortal Soul Collectors. At Immortal Soul Collectors. Is there a .com after that? Oh, that's on Instagram. Look up the Immortal Soul Collectors, and then the username, and on YouTube also Immortal Soul Collectors, right? Oh, Mavrick Von Halk on YouTube. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just make all the content. She does all the.
Well,
all
and plus, for our listeners, if they go to your bio page, I did put a link to all of your social media sites.
Oh, cool.
And then I'll link the Immortal Soul Collectors there too. I'll get the link after we get off the interview. And so I want to thank you for being a new guest on Mariano Big Dawgs Corner. And I know that he's going to share. He tried to be here today, but due to some technical difficulties, he was unable to join us at this time. But hopefully he's in the chat. Share the crap out of this interview. You know you want to. Keep up with everything that Mavrick's got going on. And this has been a new podcast.